Hello all, and welcome back. Jesus Christ, that was fucking loud. God damn, I need to pull that mic back. Welcome to Omen, Exitio, Plague. But hello, Yin. What's up with you? You know, I see your comment, and I'm just like, damn, how I have evolved. New Bedford is now just a thin line on the horizon. You set sail several hours ago. On course for Central America, the captain has modified the course a little to try and bypass a strange fog which is straight in front of you. Although a little crude, your travel companions are not half as bad as you thought at first, and the memories of the past year almost seem to belong to someone else. Your decision to continue traveling was no doubt the right one. Didn't want to sleep with the fishies? I mean... maybe? You come across Medina on deck. He's walking strangely and his clothes are soaked in blood. The wound looks fresh. What the fuck? You persuade him to come with you to the sickbay. With the right equipment, it takes little time to clean and treat his wounds properly. The wounds are not very serious, but without the right treatment, he would have risked a nasty infection. Medea feigns indifference, but from the way he looks at the medical instruments, you can tell he is a little afraid of doctors. Same, dude. You are leaving the poop deck. I'm sorry, that made me giggle inside like a 5-year-old. You are leaving the poop deck and walking towards the bow when you see a steamship in the distance. It appears strangely motionless, as if adrift. Potentially they need help. So, my paranoid brain is like, but what if it's the cult, though? But what if it's the cult? But what if it's the cult, though? So, fuck it. You're more scared of the receptionist? Why? Like, why? Is it the whole phone thing? Hello, Newton. What is up with you? I'm here to chew gum and crack jokes at Donnie's annoyance, and I'm all out of gum. Damn it, Newton. The doctor can just point at the issue the receptionist I haven't actually talked to. Don't you actually have to talk to the doctor too, though? Like, I'm pretty sure you do. Captain, I've seen a ship which looks adrift. They may require our help. Elyan takes out his telescope, leans on the rail, and observes the ship. Then he shouts an order. Hard to starboard. You immediately change course and begin approaching the steamer. As the steamer gets bigger and bigger, you have a strange premonition. Suddenly, the steamer turns on its engines, and the bow turns to face you. Elyan pulls out his telescope again and looks at the steamer. Hard turn, hard turn. The ship is full of armed men, pirates. At least it's pirates, and not the cult. I can deal with pirates. Cannot deal with the cult. The Serenity will be unable to sustain a high-speed collision with such a large steamship. It is getting closer by the minute, and if they catch you, your small cargo ship will be easy prey. There are not enough weapons on board to defend yourself against such an enemy. Despite everyone working frantically, the pirates are still closing in. There is a sudden whistle and a crack of splintering wood. They have started firing. Ooh. What have we done for speechcraft? Let's do one for speechcraft. Thank you, we're in the oath. Captain, we won't survive a direct attack. We have to get into the fog bank. It's our only chance. The captain nods and looks at the pirates getting closer. You can tell he is not keen on the idea, but that he recognizes that it could be your only chance of surviving. The ship changes directions abruptly. If Bahrain isn't owning piracy, isn't stealing. But this is before the internet, though. This is like Victorian times, if I'm not mistaken. Well, maybe after Victorian times. When was the steamship invented? At some point. A change of direction confuses the steamship, giving you a chance to put a small distance between yourself and it. You're headed straight into a large bank of fog. and looking around, you see Medina mumble something and crossing himself repeatedly. Neither do the other men look happy about the decision, but since the steamboat has corrected course and is once again in pursuit, no one protests. You turn back and look at the men on the steamship. You borrow an eyeglass to get a better look at them, but what you see freezes your blood. The men you see all have on their forearms tattooed with eye symbols. It was the cult! It was pirate cult members! Wow! Fucking great! Could it be an absurd coincidence, or have they been on your tail all this time? First commercial was 1807. Okay, so that's probably fine. It probably is Victorian times then. They don't have cars yet. And then that gives me a big clue that it's probably Victorian times. The pirates, or rather the cultists, are preparing an attack. While some continue shooting, others are preparing rope lines to board any minute now. However, the first wisps of fog have already Can I read, please? However, the first wisps of fog are already enveloping the Serenity. But what does defending the ship mean? Does defending the ship means taking an active fight, or does... We'll defend the ship. You find some wooden boards and put together some kind of protection from the men who will soon be boarding the ship. Then you realize that it is pointless, and your shelter is ridiculous. You can stop some of them, but the cult will stop at nothing to get to you. You are increasingly panicked as you think about the situation. In the open sea, there is nowhere to run. No way of escaping the cult. You can hear the shouts and sounds of grappling hooks being thrown. Every muscle in your body is tense, ready for action, when you suddenly notice wisps of fog floating around the bridge. You stand up and look over the railing. The ship has disappeared, replaced by thick fog. Even the far end of the bridge of the Serenity is getting difficult to see. The Serenity is now drifting undisturbed in the eerie silent fog. There is no trace of the steamship. The sound of its engines and the shouts of its crew have fallen silent. Your crewmates, too, are now silent and tense. And not for fear of the steamship. The surrounding atmosphere is surreal and discontenting. There is silence full of anticipation. Everyone seems convinced that whatever is about to happen, it won't be pleasant. That is Spanish. I don't know how to speak Spanish. I think that's Spanish. He says a thing in Spanish. You do not... Great! We're not supposed to understand what the hell he's saying. You do not understand Medina's words, but the terror on his face is perfectly intelligible. It's almost as if time itself has frozen. The fog has become thicker, and now it is impossible to see more than 6 feet ahead in any direction. Sounds too harsh. Sounds too have been muffled. You know the captain is shouting orders from close by, but they seem distant, as if coming from another world. Everyone on deck for a head count. I need to know how many we have lost. A drop of water lands in your forehead, and then you see another between your feet on the deck of the bridge. It started raining. The crew assembled on deck. Somebody stumbles and swears, likely knocking into someone else. That he said, "Ay Dios míos." That means bad things. That means bad things. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but I know that it means bad shit. You are standing immobile as if petrified on the bridge. You don't know which direction to go, and the rain is getting heavier. Stay. The sea begins to stir, and suddenly the ship is shaken, as if by a large wave or a collision with a reef, or the pirate ship. You ascertain that it is not the pirate ship, and it cannot be a reef. You are too far from the coast. It is a wave. And as another hits the side of the ship, you see... you see Median tossed by its force into a railing right in front of you. We're gonna get fucked if we do that. You look around as best you can in the fog and see a rope a little distance away. You scramble over to it and throw it to Medea. He catches hold of it, and you pull him across the bridge. Another wave bursts over the side of the ship and hits Medea, but he is able to hold on. If it hadn't been for you, he would have gone over the railing and into the sea. In these conditions, that would have meant certain death. There are unnatural sounds in the fog in addition to the screams of sailors. There is something weird going on, and you start feeling this is no ordinary storm. Quick, everyone to their stations. We must regain control of the ship. Now the captain emerges from the fog, yelling and waving his arms. He is trying to encourage the crew to action. To help him with the situation, another larger wave hits the deck, knocking Elian down and dragging him away. Oof. As soon as the waves recede, you go over and see what has happened to him. You find him some distance away, covered with blood and eyes popping. At first you do not understand, but then you see that a wave has impaled him on a loading hook. Oof! You see its point protruding from his sternum, and you realize that he has mere seconds to live. The water remaining on the bridge turns red with his blood. Dios means Oh, okay. Okay. That's good to know. Madre Dios. So, like, Mother of God, I'm going to assume that that's what that means. I can figure out Spanish sometimes. Medea, white-faced and terrified, is next to you, also staring at your dead captain. You hear him reach, and you turn away as not to see him throw up. The ship shudders again, and you hear a queer noise. Next time you turn around, ooh, Medea is gone, disappeared into the fog. I know what that word means. I know what C means. The screaming around you has lessened, but the ship rocks even more violently. You start moving in the fog, looking for other crew members, but now there is only silence, and the ship appears empty, as if abandoned. Another jolt, and there is a shriek of tearing as you are thrown overboard. You manage to resurface despite the ferocity of the waves. If you don't act now, you will die. You are thrashing your arms, keeping your head out of the water to look around. You can see a large shape in the water just ahead of you. With great effort, you manage to get close to it. It is a portion of the bridge. With the last of your strength, you pull yourself out of the water. You are desperately clinging to this piece of wood tossed about in the waves of the storm. More experience points. You have no idea how long you have been holding on to this fragment of the serenity, but after a while the storm calms and the fog begins to clear. You are weak from hunger and dehydration. Your grip on the wood begins to relax, and only then do you notice the pain in your hands. It is your final thought before exhaustion carries you away into sleep. A place to call home. My cat is named Mio or Mayo? Just like me, chilling in the couch and stays up all night. I mean, that's what cats do. When you open your eyes, you are already coughing violently. You feel cold, hard. You can feel. Can I please fucking read? You can feel cold, hard sand below you. When your vision comes to focus, you immediately see a face looking down at you. A young, dark-skinned woman is watching you with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. She has long black hair, and her face seems to balance sweetness and strength. With some effort, you manage to sit up and look around. There is no trace of your ship or your crew. We are marooned once again! Captain Elia, Medina, and all the others gone, probably dead. The woman is still watching you with intense curiosity, perhaps even a hint of suspicion. You're about to smile when her expression transforms again, and in a single skillful movement, she twirls around a spear, pointing its sharp tip at your throat. Yay! I'm so excited! That is... Two is a Spanish word. But I also don't know what the fuck that means. Mio, like in Spanish. I mean, I have a cat named Rusia, and I do not speak Bulgarian. He wasn't supposed to have a Bulgarian name, but then I found out that I accidentally gave him a Bulgarian name, even though it has Anglo-Saxon spelling. Oopsies. She speaks French. Oh. Okay, then. Probably rat. I don't know. I don't speak French. How would I do that? Having studied French at university, you understand her fairly well, but there is a word in her question which you do not understand, a word that doesn't even sound like French. You answer trying to pronounce the words to the best of your ability. I feel like this just makes people more suspicious to point their weapons at you, so... She studies you gravely and speaks to you again in French. I asked if you are Rato, one of them. I'm sorry, I still don't understand who is them. The woman is perplexed. You really don't know who I am talking about? I don't even know where I am, let alone who you are talking about. I was on a ship which floundered in the storm. The woman continues scrutinizing you, then she slowly lowers her spirit and you can see the faint hint of a smile on her lips. Then she helps you stand. You are unsteady on your feet, but you are thankful that you can even stay upright. Recent events have taken their toll. You are hungry and your throat is still burning. She beckons you to follow her and then walks off towards the jungle, which begins immediately behind the beach. She is guiding you through the dense vegetation of jungle, holding your hand with a grip so tight that you doubt that you would be able to break free even if you were not in your current dilapidated state. After a few hundred meters, the jungle gives way to a clearing, and in it, a small village. As you approach, the villagers immediately stop their activities and turn to stare at you and exchange surprised comments among themselves. The woman is still holding your hand, dragging you through the village. She speaks again, but not in French. You cannot understand a single word she is saying, and you still feel very confused. Finally, she stops, turns to you, and goes back to speaking French. My name is... Oh, Jesus Christ. Yatai... Ayata. Ayata? This is my village. Many of the other villagers start crowding around you and begin to feel somewhat apprehensive. The adrenaline produced by walking in such a strange circumstance is suddenly overpowered by your fatigue, and you feel your knees give way. Ayata props you up to stop you from falling. You wonder if you will faint. Realizing that your hunger and thirst are reaching critical levels. You are sitting on the floor of a hut, and Ayanta is bringing you food. There are various strange tropical fruits and wooden bowls filled with food that you do not recognize. You waste no time asking what they are, though, and begin eating and drinking with gusto. Ayata is sitting next to you, still looking at you inquisitively. She seems cheerful, as if the mere sight of you amuses her. Then her expression changes. She becomes serious. This village is not free. Since they came, we have had no freedom. We do whatever they want us to, and every month they come here to take one of us away. No one has ever come back. Who are they? Foreigners. They have weapons, and they do things, strange things. All the villagers are scared of them. Scared that they will put a curse on us, or worse. So they can do whatever they want to us, and no one protests. You are intrigued. It certainly is a strange story, and you have many questions, but just then a young boy about 12 years old enters the huts and comes close. Ayata smiles. Jake, this is the village chief's son. Oh no, we have a really bad reputation with children. We accidentally killed one. We might kill another child again. Para Huhevia, but everybody calls him Fugo. You shake hands with Fugo and discovers that he too speaks French. Sure. So you are the chief's son. You are an important person then. My father is important. I am only a boy for now. Of course, I will make him proud by becoming as good of a chief as him. For a moment, you are struck by the boy's pride, but then you laugh. Ayata laughs with you. Sure. You must be clever yourself, then. And bursts out laughing again. Ayata smiles too, but her face has darkened again. Ayata stands up and looks at you, ending the conversation. What has happened? Okay, so we just got a fuck ton of experience points again. Some pirates aboard a small boat attacked your ship. They were cult followers. They were clearly looking for you. Completed the mission Captain Elian gave you. island. Somewhere. Who knows where this is? Follow me. Ayata silently walks off towards the edge of the village. You follow her and notice that Fugo is walking behind you. Ayata turns and gives him a look, silently giving her consent for him to follow you too. You both continue following her until you are at least 100 yards outside the village. Ayata sits and you and Fugo follow suit. My people are terrified and suspicious. They are completely at the mercy of these foreigners. They believe them to be something like sorcerers, but I think they are only men. I have followed them, watched them. I don't see what they do with the people that they kidnap, but I saw them performing strange rituals. What kind of rituals? I'm not sure. They meet at a cave in the middle of the forest, wearing a sort of skirt and mask. They all have the same strange tattoo on their arm. It looks like an eye, but I never dare to get too close, so I don't know what they actually do during the rites, but I did see that they had brought with them the man which they kidnapped from the village. You are stunned speechless. It is the cult here too, but how is that possible? You attempt to conceal your reaction, but Ayata watches you closely. She pauses for a moment, and Fugo looks at her. You can see where Ayata is going with all this. She wants you to rise up against the cult, and finding no support from the people of her village, she sees you as a possible ally. You want me to help you. Ayata silently nods her head. Fugo does the same. Rato is a French word for young rat. And Google AI was wrong. Yet again. Shocking. Surprising even. They must be stopped, but other people are too afraid. I need to know what they are doing with the people from the village that they have taken. Then either fight or escape. Then Ayata tells you about a small island nearby where the villagers could hide if things go awry. Sure, fuck it. Let's do the thing. Ayata smiles, a smile that makes you feel that in another situation, another time, she would have thrown her arms around you. Fugo, though, jumps to his feet and begins to shake in a sort of dance, accompanied by low-pitched yelps, which you assume to be a celebratory tradition of their tribe. You go back to the village, crossing a short stretch of jungle in silence. The Eye of the Island. Part of me wonders, so, like, I've had a couple different thoughts of, like, okay, so the story's gonna end here. It did. 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 I'm getting the fucking same vibes here with this, where it's like, is this where we end? Like, are we getting towards, like, the end? Or is it just gonna be another peril? You spend the entire next day with Ayata and Fugo. Fugo has taken it upon himself to acquaint you with the fishing traditions of the village. He takes you to meet with a group of fishermen who have just returned from sea. Fugo proudly teaches you the local names for the fishing equipment, as well as all the fish and other animals that fill the nets which are thrown from the boat, which are small dugout. I'm going to assume this is a boat type. Pirogues? The women of the village take the catch and prepare it for the meal. What? Because you have no idea what the fuck they do. You watch the men load and transport the nets. You wouldn't have any idea how to help them, and you would probably just have got in the way. Ayata gives you a look as if to say not to worry, because everyone knows you are not a fisherman. A large fire is lit and all the women are busy cleaning the fish and crustaceans caught by the men when you notice a certain tension in the air. There are noises coming from the jungle. Ayata, wide-eyed, alerts you, and Fugo, you must hide. Armed strangers, while pale yet tanned skin and European features, enter the village and corral its inhabitants together. With angry and threatening commands, they start examining the villagers. From behind the hut where Ayata has taken you to hide, you are able to see the whole scene. You assume that they have come to kidnap someone. As recounted by Aya, you raise yourself up a little to get a better view of what is happening, but you accidentally knock over a fishing spear and has been left leaning against the hut, making a noise. Wow, we fucked up so hard. You haven't seen any Cthulhu's yet? Not all, like, Lovecraftian stories have Cthulhu in them. Or even anything Cthulhu-like. Sometimes it's just, like, diseases and shit. Which is, like... And now there's a cult. There's diseases. That feels pretty Lovecraftian to me. Who is that? Is someone there? He speaks in French. Another man approaches the hut where you are hiding. Ayata is frozen on the spot, but then Fugo rises to his feet and walks calmly into the clearing. You are shocked and about to say something, but Ayata gestures for you to stay silent. What do we have here? A little boy. Do you think he could hide from us? The cultist smacks Fugo's face, but the young boy hits him immediately back. Unfortunately, his strike has little effect on the man, and after a second blow, Fugo is left reeling and bloody and on the ground. There is a tentacle in the title screen. There is. So, like, what's like, is that going to happen, or is it just illustrative? Or is it just, like, illustrative of the cult reaching for the world? Like, the men of the village are immobile and terrified. Gentlemen, I'd say we already have what we came for. The men make signal to the other cultists and they grab Fugo's arm and start dragging him away easily despite his resistance. Ayata jerks forward and is about to shout, but this time it is your turn to silence her by putting your hand over her mouth. Only for a second she struggles, then realizes you are right. You feel a cold tear fall on the hand covering her mouth. The cultists leave the village, taking Fugo with them. You're still holding Ayata even though she stopped struggling long ago. You know full well that you could not have done anything. In fact, you would probably have made the situation worse if you had reacted just now. Despite this awareness, you cannot help but feel like a coward. When the cultists have gone, you come out of your hiding place. How? Just us? We don't know them. What are they capable of? Ayata is tearful and angry. What do you mean? I have come across this cult before. The ship I was traveling on was sunk due to them. Have you got any ideas then? I don't think that that's gonna lend us anything. You try to come up with a plan of action, but quickly realize that you do not have enough information. I do not know. Maybe it's possible. I have watched them, followed them. Their camp is on the opposite side of the island, and there is a cave there where they do their rituals. You have a starting point at least. You will need to see it for yourself to get a better idea of the situation so that you can make a plan of attack. You will also need to find out if there is anybody willing to help you and Ayata, or if you are alone. Now you just have to make a start. I don't know. Oh. We're doing that. We're checking the different places. In the text, she has a Y here. Polynesian? We're in the Polynese? Where is that? Young, fierce, and attractive Polynesian girl willing to do anything to help her brothers and sisters. She is the only one in the village that seems ready to face the men of the cult. 12-year-old boy, son of the village chief, shrewd, cheerful, selfless, and determined. He seems ready to do anything to help the other villagers escape from captivity of the cult. Cultists had kidnapped Fugo. You must act quickly, or the boy will become a guinea pig for their experiments. We have once again got so much experience. God. So far, the story is basically a paraphrased Call of Cthulhu. Really? Interesting. So they've just turned the Call of Cthulhu into a, story, like an interactive storybook, basically. Okay, where do we go? There must be someone willing to help you. Convincing the villagers to follow you may not be completely useless. The cult's cave pit contains clues. I feel like it's the cave that's going to be the best. Rays of sunlight filter down through the jungle vegetation, warming your skin. You have been walking with Ayatha for some time when eventually she turns to you and gestures for you to be silent and move more slowly. You are approaching the cave where the cult conducts its rituals. The thick jungle opens onto a small beach. It's a different perspective and some scrambled plot points. Okay. You know, I have actually never read Call of Cthulhu. I probably should. They walk up here in a line. You approach the entrance to the cave, carefully making sure that there is no one around you or inside. You light a torch and go inside. I think they come here for this. You are moving deeper into the cave. Ayatha holds the torch near the cave walls, illuminating strange and ugly pictograms. These drawings were here long before they came to this island. They have been here since ancient times. The symbols on the wall are heavily stylized, a bizarre hybrid of rock painting and Egyptian hieroglyphics. You make out what seems to be people worshipping, and others who seem to be suffering. All around these figures are unspeakable and terrible creatures, dark horrors with such bizarre shapes that they seem to change as you look at them. In various points, you recognize the now familiar eye symbol. Ah! There he is! There he is, guys! We found him! You reach the edge of the cave, which opens onto a large space with a natural rock dome. The drawings all lead to the far end, where you see a much larger picture. It looks like an altar surrounded by men wearing what you recognize as a stylized version of the cult's mask and kilt. In the center, there is something which emerges from what looks like a well. In the mass of the black, you manage to distinguish something, perhaps an eye. In the center of the mass, and there are protrusions like black tentacles reaching up the sky towards what looks like the representation of a comet, and then you notice another detail. Caught up in the tentacles, there is a human figure screaming, his face horribly contorted in pain. In addition to the pictograms, there are inscriptions written in strange and incomprehensible alphabet, of which is hard to understand what exactly constitutes a letter or a word. No one really understands this language. You inspect the cave more closely, but aside from the pictograph you have already seen, there is little else of interest. You turn to Ayada and ask her what the pictures mean in her opinion. I have thought about it, and I think it's a prophecy of some kind, where the inscriptions could be either a story or a prayer, but the drawings seem to depict a ritual which is supposed to awaken something terrible. Somehow, there is a comet involved too. It's a sacrifice, you think, but you don't say anything. The images show a sacrifice is conjunction with the passing of a comet. Your mysterious friend warned you about an approaching comet in his last message. Returning to the tropical forest, you are pensive and silent. What you saw in the cave left you with a deep sense of anxiety that you can't seem to shake off. You have seen similar things in your nightmares. Ayatha must have noticed the sense of oppression that lingers around you. Do you think this cave could figure into your plan? You remember how that this was the original reason why you came to the cave, and you consider it now carefully. On reflection, you decide that the cave is too risky of a location for any sort of ambush or attack. I think we need to gather information before we try to convince anyone. You are walking around the huts watching the villagers and their activities. You are a stranger among these people, but at the same time you feel no negativity, discomfort, or hostility from them. Despite not being one of them, they do not seem to be scared of you. Rather, they treat you as an honored guest. I will need to have a clear picture of the layout of the cultist camp. You are explaining to Aya that in order to rescue Hugo and maybe the other villagers who were captured before your arrival, you will need more information about the enemy camp. Tonight. When twilight arrives, you see Ayata heading away from the village, giving you the briefest of meaningful glances, telling you to follow. Again, you walk for what seems to be like an eternity, but eventually she motions for you to slow the pace. You understand that you are near the place. Got it. I was like, near what? You are on a small rocky outcrop hidden by trees. At the base of the rocks, you can see the camp. It seems to be mostly tents, although there are some huts made of wood and corrugated iron. They look to have been built only recently. And there they are. You scan the camps with close attention, but so far you can see no signs of the cult. It looks just like a normal military outpost. You wonder if you had not been in too much of a hurry to connect them to the London cult. You see various men sitting around a fire in the center of the camp, eating a meal. Others are moving around the camp. Even from a distance, you can tell most of them are white Europeans you already saw in the village. It must be hot near the fire, and many of them are bare-chested, but the dim light makes the fire... By the dim light of the fire, you can see a dark shape on their wrists, but don't need to get any closer to know that it's the cult's eye tattoo. When they have finished eating, instead of extinguishing the fire, some of the men bring more wood and start to build the fire up, increasingly in diameter and intensity. After a few minutes, 2 men come out of the huts carrying a dead body. As they approach the pyre, you are able to get a better look at the body. It is one of the villagers, a body covered in pockmarks, and despite the fact that you cannot be sure from this distance, you suspect that they are the familiar marks of the disease. They throw the corpse onto the fire. Ayata turns her head away, her hands closed in fists, shaking with horror and rage. Ayata struggles to contain her pain and the anger. You can see straight through her seemingly calm exterior. For now, you decide it is better not to say anything, and you turn back to the forest in silence. Was that useful for your plan? You nod. Now that you know exactly where the prisoners are kept, you can start formulating a plan to rescue them. The sun is already high in the sky when you finally leave your bed and walk out of the hut where you had been sleeping. The village is a hive of activity. Many of the fishermen's dugouts are already at sea. Others are intent on finishing their careful preparations before heading out. The women are busy with various activities. Some tend to crops on the edge of the village, while others are looking after the children. It seems like any other perfectly ordinary day, as if Fugo's kidnap or those from before had never happened at all. Ayata comes up, bringing you some fruit for breakfast. Have you had any ideas? We are organizing a raid on the cult's camp. Ayata notes your hesitation. But you don't think that it is possible. You explain to her that it is not the case, but that you would have a much better chance of success if it were not just you two. They are strong and determined, and when they decide to do something, they stop at nothing. However, unfortunately, as I've already told you, they are very superstitious. They wouldn't even consider attacking people who they believe are capable of magic. They have weapons, terrible weapons, that can strike from a great distance and with more force than arrows. That is all that I know. What attempt? You notice Ayata's tone of voice when speaking about the villagers, and you decide that maybe some of them could be convinced to help you. When you tell her this, and that it is your best hope, she nods in agreement. There are perhaps 3 of the men that we could convince. Amenya is the chief. He's very close to his son. With her eyes, she indicates his hut. He has not left the hut since his boy was kidnapped. Oh god, it's names. Tahatoa is strong and powerful, not very easily scared. Minari? Nuari? I'm gonna have to re-say that again later. He's very agile and strong. I think he suppresses his anger for them. I think you're gonna be better. Ayata shows you which hut is Tahitoa's. He has not yet left the hut to go fishing. Recently, however, Tahitoa has not been fishing much at all because he has been looking after his brother. Well, that might not work out. Inata, his brother is bedridden because of a fishing accident. As soon as you enter the hut, you are reprimanded by Tahitoa. What are you doing? Can't you see that there is a sick person here? Get out. You could potentially, yeah. When you approach Aneta, his protective brother starts to protest, but Ayata stops him and calms him down. Examining the abrasions, you can see that it is not very serious, but also that it has not been cleaned properly at all. You patiently explain that you will have to treat the wound, and that although it will be painful, it will help them heal more quickly. Ayata is watching you treat his brother, and he seems impressed. You clean and dress the wound with great care. He may have a light fever over the next few hours, but in a day or two he will be fine. You look over to see the Hatoya smiling happily while you were treating his brother. Ayata told him about your plan. You have helped Inata. I am with you. You go up to Amana's hut, knock, and enter. You find the chief sitting in silence on a mat in the center of his hut, his thoughts seemingly miles away. You are silent for a moment, considering your words, but he speaks before you. You must forgive my manners, but mourning fathers can forget the most basic courtesies towards both guests and their own companions. I can understand your pain, Amanya, but you are a strong and wise man. You are a strong and wise man. And you should not be mourning yet. I know the cult, and they have no magical powers. However, I also know the danger that your boy Fugo faces, and I have no intention of leaving him in their hands. I'm going to rescue him. You pause for a few moments, and then turn to leave the hut. You have only taken a couple steps when you hear Amana's voice. You will not go alone. Tell me your plan, and I will come with you. You follow Ayata to a dugout, and you paddle together to Nuri's usual fishing spot. You reach him quickly and guide right up to his canoe. At first, he seems to be ignoring your presence, then he barks at you. You are frightening the fish. Find your own spot. He does not seem too happy to see you. You watch him fishing, wondering whether he will help you on this rescue mission. Something about his concentration and bearing gives you the impression that he is indeed a brave man, but also deeply melancholic. You detect even a hint of guilt in his unblinking eyes. We are going to rescue Fugo and all those who have been taken by the masked men, all of them. The man raises his hand and fixes you with his large, bright eyes. That is a brave plan. I will help. When you return to your hut after having approached and spoken to the three men suggested you by Ayata, the sun is falling fast towards the horizon over the great expanse of the ocean. I was afraid that no one would come with us, Jake. There is hope, however. Fear has not completely taken over this village. Despite the great risk you face, you are reassured by the fact that you have allies from the village. There will be 5 of you involved in this rescue attempt. Nonetheless, you have to plan the attack so as not to be seen. Surprise will clearly be an important element in your raid. The strenuous fight of the little man! You are lying in your hut and staring at its thatched palm roof, losing yourself in thoughts about the upcoming mission and its obvious dangers when your thoughts turn to something else. Something which you have ignored since you first regained consciousness on the island. How the hell did you even get here? Now you have an idea of where you are. The answer seems utterly impossible. When the Serenity became lost in the fog, it had been heading towards South America, but this island is not in the Caribbean. When you saw the stars on the first night, you got a shock. At first you could not recognize a single constellation, until, that is, you knew what to look for, the constellations of the southern hemisphere. You seem to be on a Polynesian island in the middle of the Pacific. It is already astonishing that you should have survived, let alone have made such a journey while unconscious. Your thoughts are interrupted by the entrance of Ayata, whose face appears as she pulls a curtain to one side. How are you, Jake? Ayata stands silently awaiting your reply. Her beautiful face is marred by a worried frown. She too has probably had trouble sleeping, preoccupied with thoughts of your dangerous plan. Everything will be fine! I'm nervous. Ayata won't look you in the eyes. It is as if she wants to conceal her fears from you, even while confessing the very same. Yeah. Of course, it is life and death, but will we be able to do it? Ayata looks at you, her face overcast with doubt. She starts to think that you have no hope of success. That poor child. I wonder what they are doing. Ayata's eyes fill with tears. Ayata nods. Thank you, Jake. Ayata says goodnight, then leaves your hut. You watch her as she leaves, and her face in movement. You were unable to allay her fears, but she nonetheless seems to trust you. She is a strong woman, and you are quite sure that she will do whatever is necessary for your mission to succeed. That is a lot of experience points. God damn. Ayata led you to visit a cave in the middle of the forest used by cultists for their rituals. In the cave, you found some strange cave paintings. One in particular has struck you and seems to represent a prophecy involving a comet. Ayata brought you to the cult camp. At the center, you have noticed a massive building made of wood and sheet metal. Probably that's where Fugo and the other villagers are locked up. You managed to recruit all the 3 men that Ayata suggested to you. They will be useful reinforcement in your fight against the cult, but will that be enough for your mission? You're shipwrecked on a mysterious island. When you look at the sky, you find that the constellations are not the ones you are used to, but they seem to correspond to those visible from the southern hemisphere. Where are you exactly? A large man who isolated himself from the rest of the village to tend to his sick brother. He could be an excellent resource in the event of a physical confrontation with the cult members. Village chief and Fugo's father, Sirius Mighty, he strikes you as a strategist and could prove to be an excellent resource in your attempt to save the villagers kidnapped by the cult. An agile and smart fisherman, somewhat short-tempered, but that could prove to be an excellent resource in a sortie in the cult camp. The great pixel walleye of Minnesota has become a reality. Wonderful. I'm so excited. We recruited Pehoda, we recruited Amana, and Manuari. Spend the night alone before the sortie at the cult camp. The darkness of the forest is only broken by moonlight when there are gaps in the trees, and when there... What? The darkness of the forest is only broken by moonlight when there are gaps in the trees, and when there are, you look up to see the heavens full of stars. Far more than in the northern hemisphere, Ayata is leading the way with a determined stride. Behind you are the men who are successful in recruiting for this mission. I'll follow cautiously and in total silence. You come to the outcrop which juts out over the cult's campsite and stop to observe the situation. Everything is silent. The camp is asleep. They know the superstitious nature of the islanders. They assume that they do not need fortifications or surveillance. You start walking down the narrow path that leads to the beach, the biggest of all the wood and congregated iron buildings in the center of the camp. You suspect that that is where they are keeping Fugo and the other kidnapped villagers. You quickly reach the camp and have no problems getting close to the central hut. However, when you get there, you see it is guarded by a heavy-built man. He has large muscles and thighs, like tree trunks. Every so often, he gets up, circles the building, then gets back and sits down again. His presence confirms your initial guess that this is where they are keeping the prisoners. Mana takes the lead. He watches the guard carefully, studying his movements, then selects the right moment to slip unnoticed onto the building, gesturing for you to follow. Inside the building is mostly bare. There are some shelves and walls filled with objects and containers. An object there immediately strikes your attention. It looks like a syringe, but not like any syringe you've ever seen. You pick it up and... interesting. Pick it up and hold it to the light. Yes, it is like a syringe, but it has more than one needle. It has a brass mounting with 4 tiny needles arranged in the shape that you recognize immediately. An injection with this instrument would certainly leave a strange mark that you saw on the backs of the heads of the sick in Zanzibar. You shiver involuntarily at the memory and put the strange syringe in your pocket. You return to looking around. At the far end of the room, there are several camp beds, but they are all empty. Then Aya silently attracts your attention and points to a large trapdoor in the floor. You open it. A terrible stench hits your nostrils. Straight away, you recognize the sickeningly sweet and nauseous smell. It is the smell of illness and death. You take a lantern from one of the shelves and go through the trapdoor and down the ladder below. I'm gonna have you stand guard. A big Polynesian man goes over to stand confidently near the door. You can count on me. You descend a few steps with some difficulty and find yourself in an underground room. It is at least as wide as the building, if not more. The smell is now unbearable. There are several men and women. Shining the light from the lantern towards them, you see that they are the missing villagers. Many of them are covered in head to toe with sores of the disease you saw in Zanzibar. So that is what the cult is doing, infecting these people, using them as guinea pigs. A small figure steps forward from the horrific scene. Amana lets out a muffled cry. It is Fugo. He is no longer the cheeky, sprightly boy that you have come to know. He has been ravaged by the disease. The chief picks him up and takes him in his arms. Then he looks at you worried. You touch the boy's forehead and discover that he is feverish. Your eyes travel back. Immediately travel to the back of his head, and yes, the mark is there. You look at the others. They are greatly weakened by the disease and will not be able to climb the ladder to escape. You promise that you will return for them, and as soon as you ascend the ladder with Fugo, you start to think how you might do this. When you climb out of the trapdoor, you find your companion waiting. In one corner lies the guard, who must have come in and tried to get in the building. In the dark, you cannot tell if he is asleep or unconscious, but it matters little. As you are leaving the building, you hear indistinct noises coming from the camp. It may be that they have heard you, or perhaps it is just time to change turns for guards. You cannot be certain either way, but you cannot take chances. Still carrying Fugo, you run out of the camp as fast as you can. You're running through the dense vegetation of the jungle, trying to put as much distance as possible between yourself and the camp. You cannot help thinking of the poor diseased villagers locked underground, and that you are unable to save them. How the dreams of little men drown. When at last you get back to the village, dawn's first light is turning the sea a deep pink color. They used a U. They are British? Is there more than just British people that use the U in color? You are still holding Fugo when in your arms, and he is boiling hot. He hasn't said a word since you left the cult's campsite. Ato looks at him now with growing anxiety. You feel something sharp in your thigh. You put your hand in your pocket and you can feel small, sharp shards of glass. The syringe broke during your escape. It is now useless, so you throw it away. All of a sudden, Fugo starts convulsing in your arms. He is having a seizure. You take him inside to the hut, which by now you think of as yours, and lay him on the bed. You must try somehow to bring his temperature down and stabilize him, but it will take time. Another one in Madison. We have so many. Jesus. So the rescue. You have saved Fugo from the cult camp. During the mission to save Fugo, you found a strange instrument belonging to the cult. It's a syringe that probably they used to infect their lab rats. The shape of its tip recalls the mark that you found in the disease victim's nape. And maybe Canada? I don't know what Canada uses. You managed to save Fugo from the cult camp. Unfortunately, you can't do anything for the others, which you have to leave behind the disease and probably to death. Ooh. Take him inside the hut. You must try to bring his temperature down and stabilize him, but it will take time, and you know that very soon the cult will already be on their way. I'm gonna do this. Yay! Nearly after an hour of trying, you finally succeed in bringing down Fugo's temperature. Now he is sleeping calmly, but you cannot be sure whether you have done enough. Amana is at the door of the hut watching you with serious, impassive eyes. What did we fuck up or what achievement did we get? Decker of children. You could not save both children, Fugo and Scott, from the disease? What do you mean? I did what? It said success! We have no real way to defend ourselves from those men. We have to leave now. You agree with Hayata. She tells you that there is a small island a few hours away by canoe where you could go to hide. She says that she had proposed the idea to the other villagers several times, but nobody would listen. Perhaps the current situation in which you have inadvertently created might convince them. To be fair, the spelling color is becoming more and more prominent. The U is kind of redundant. I remember though, there, I've heard this from, one of my bosses who lived in the UK for a little bit. And then she came back to the States, right? So she had, like, gotten so used to writing color that way that that's how she wrote it. And in high school, she would get docked points in writing assignments for writing it like that. And it was just like, come on, dude. There are pirogues on the northern beach. There should be enough for everyone. Without knowing our route, it will take many days for them to find us. There is not much of a choice. Let's do another speechcraft. Listen, everyone. The Ratto, are on their way to attack the village. This time they are not coming to take a prisoner, but to kill us all. The villagers gather around listening with a mix of incredulity and fear. They do not have magical powers, but they do have weapons and terrible poisons. They are using the kidnapped men to test their poisons, and when they die, they throw their bodies on a fire. We found those who were still alive imprisoned underground. They will not be alive for very much longer. Ayata confirms what you are saying. You and Ayathos are getting ready to escape. You must be prepared to leave as quickly and easily as possible. You are able to organize an orderly evacuation. The villagers are following you silently through the dense jungle. You have gone far, though. Before you see directly ahead a company of cultists armed with rifles. The rifles are already loaded and aimed straight at you. Ayata quickly grabs your hand and pulls you into the cover of an area of ever-dense vegetation. The people of the village are not so lucky. You see many of them fall to the ground under their barrage of rifle shots. You do not even have time to think. Some of the cultists are already running through the clouds of gunpowder smoke looking for you. Come on, we have to hide. Through the chaos of gunpowder smoke, screaming, and people running, you see someone approach you, slowly. Fugo. He seems to be completely recovered. Oh, you didn't save both of them. I was like... I thought both of them died. I thought that was, saying that both of them had died. He seems to be completely recovered. You snatch his hand, and the three of you set off running as fast as you can. Ayata leads, pulling you through the vegetation, holding your hand ever more tightly and not looking back. You change direction several times. You do not slow for even a moment, despite nearly falling several times and having your skin ripped to shreds by thorns and sharp branches. Fugo, despite his recent sickness, fares much better than you. A cliff suddenly opens up before you, and Ayatha pulls you close to her and guides you through the narrow spaces between the cliff face and the trees until you come to a small cave and you crawl inside. You would never have suspected the existence of this large hole in the rock, and it should be almost impossible to find. Again, you feel a strong sense of guilt like a knot in your stomach. Images of the massacre flash through your mind, and you cannot help but think that this is all your fault. You try to wiggle into a new position within the confined space of the cave. You have been there for hours, and every part of your body is aching. The idea was that after a sufficiently long time, the cultists would come to the conclusion that you are dead. That you are as dead as the rest of the village. It is a thought that only reinforces your sense of guilt. The sun is disappearing over the horizon of the ocean. Ayata is holding Fugo in her arms. He obviously has less physical difficulty being in this confined space. But he had just recovered from the disease when he had to witness the deaths of all of the people closest to him in the world. Nonetheless, his face is composed, even a little proud. Night has fallen. It's been several hours since you last heard the shouts and other noises of the cultists searching the jungle. It is now reasonable to suppose that they have by now abandoned their search, thinking that they have killed everyone, or that if anyone has escaped, they are long gone. You leave the cave and move silently towards the beach where the canoes are. Fortunately, you are still extremely cautious, because near the pirogues are 2 armed cultists. The men still seem to you to have military bearing. You tell Ayata to be ready. According to your observation of their movement, one of them will soon go off patrol and the others to the beach. We'll go off to patrol the other side of the beach, and that will be the moment to move. The 2 cultists have been immobile and silent for some time when one of them pulls something from his coat pocket. You do not see what it is until his face is illuminated by a small flame, which lights a cigarette. His partner starts walking away. Probably to patrol the other side of the beach. This could be your only chance. We're not going to do anything with agility. Fugo starts running along the beach. When the man sees him, he pulls out his pistol with nonchalance, as if practicing at a shooting range. When he pulls out his cigarette, it lights up his smiling face. You creep up behind him and knock him unconscious with a large stone that you took from the edge of the beach. It seems that they were determined to stop anyone from escaping. They have damaged the canoes to make them unusable. Upon further inspection, you find one pirogue which is less damaged than the others and should still float. It won't be carry all 3 of you, though. You shake with anger and frustration. You were so close. Go, Fugo knows the way. You angrily refuse. You have been arguing about it for some time when you both suddenly realize that Fugo has gone. Ayata stops herself shouting with her hand. No. You look for him in vain. That brave, stubborn boy made the difficult decision for you. You keep looking for him until the sky begins to turn bright. Despite your suffering, you can't let his sacrifice be in vain. Ayata, still weeping, helps you push the pirogue into the water. With a sigh, you sit and pick up your paddle. With a heavy heart, you drift away from the island. The sun reflecting off every single wave, you are surrounded by the immense ocean. You have no conception of how much time has passed, and you are lying dazed in the pirogue. Your skin is taut, cracked and burnt by the unrelenting sun. Thirst has overtaken you, and you have no strength to paddle whatsoever. The boat is now at the mercy of the wind and currents. You do not understand how it happened, but at some point Ayata lost her bearings. It must have been the pain of losing Fugo, the panic of the escape, or perhaps it was just that the current altered your course and she didn't notice. Whatever reason, it means that instead of reaching the island you intended, you are drifting helplessly, surrounded by an infinite expanse of flat water. With great effort, you manage to lift your head. You look at Ayata, who is laying on the other part of the canoe. It looks like she is breathing, but you cannot be certain. It may just be the slight rise and fall of the ocean. You let your head back down. It is too hard to keep it raised for too long. Suddenly, your fingers feel wet. At first, you suspect it is your mind playing tricks on you, but then it feels increasingly real. Is the pirogue sinking? You lift your head to see it is not water on your fingers, but blood. In front of you, Helen is splayed out on the bed. We get to have another nightmare about our wife. Wonderful. In front of you, Helen is splayed out on the bed. The sheets are soaked in blood, and it keeps flowing from her mouth, body, and eyes like red tears. Why didn't you save me, Jake? Instinctively, you want to scream. You take a few steps towards Helen. The blood is now flowing faster. The whole bed is red, but it is oh my god. But is it because of the blood, or is it the color of the sheets? Jake, please don't leave me. She opens her arms. She is beautiful again. The one in front of you is now your Helen, as you remember her. Sure. You embrace your wife. You can feel her warmth and scent. It is really her. You hold her tightly in your arms. A sound starting low begins to rise up. You catch movements out of the corner of your eye as something is crawling inside the walls of your bedroom. The movement seems to grow, and now the walls are pulsating slowly as if something living is pushing on them from behind. You try to warn Helen to extricate yourself from her embrace so that you can escape this latest threat, but her arms keep a vice-like grip on you. Like the jaws of a trap, she whispers in your ear. Shush, my love, do not be afraid. There will be this being made of millions of parts which crawled inside me. And you just let it happen. Now you must let this being crawl inside you too. The walls began to crack and crack. The walls began to crack and the cracks began to spread and widen. Through the cracks emerged terrible black shapes like tendrils searching to suffocate the air itself. As they slowly grow out of the walls, they begin to look like roots or tentacles. Then you become aware that they are not moving, growing randomly. They are reaching towards you. The sharp pain tears you from the nightmare. Perhaps you had some sort of seizure in your dreams because now your whole body is wrecked with painful cramps. You feel a tremendous heat, but it is not the sun. It is inside your body. It is a fever, and it is rising. You try to sit up and call to Ayata, but the canoe is rocking. With great difficulty, you clutch the edge of the boat and haul yourself up. The sea is calm, but you see Ayata leaning over the sea. She has a sunstroke and has probably gone mad in the heat. You are trying to shout to stop her, but you are too late and you want her to fall overboard. With all the effort you can possibly muster, you try to reach out to her, but you are physically incapable of moving. She floats almost motionless at the surface of the water. She doesn't have the energy to pull her head out of the water. You make another desperate attempt to grab her foot, but you lose consciousness and fall back into the boat. The last image you see is Ayata's body drifting away. You come to and pass out again several times. When you find yourself again conscious, you try to open your eyes and to move, but you are unable. When you are finally able to open your eyes, it is night. It is much cooler, and the drop in temperature relieves your pain somewhat. Your physical pain, at least. You think sorrowfully of Ayata and Fugo and all the villagers, all the lives you were unable to save, like Helen's too. You cough, and the sudden movement gives you searing pain in your chest. You shudder in your arms. Perhaps your time has come. You close your eyes. You are ready. When you open your eyes again, you see little tongues of mist rising over the size of the Pyrog. Then you black out again. A loud and violent noise brings you back to consciousness. It takes you some time to recognize what it is. The foghorn of a ship. Your little Pyrog is suddenly hit by large waves. Despite the total lack of wind, there is another foghorn blast just before you lose consciousness yet again. Something big is coming. We finished chapter 3, apparently. So there's a whole nother fucking chapter. I don't really like that they call those chapters, because, like, these feel like chapters. I knew it! There was gonna be more bullshit. I was like, I'm being led into a false sense of this story is over. Just kidding. It's not. Revenant. You are lying staring at a ceiling which seems to be pulsating and rocking slowly and steadily. Suddenly, you are convinced that it is about to break and come crashing down on you, so you flinch involuntarily. There's no way of knowing whether this latest hallucination is a result of your long day spent drifting, parched on the open seas, or some other mysterious cause. The bed in which you find yourself is soft and comfortable, but you cannot really enjoy it. In fact, you feel a certain amount of revulsion. It is too soft, too calm. You are half expecting fearsome, dark and slimy appendages to begin to emerge from the sheets to suffocate you at any moment. After having spent several weeks at sea at the mercy of the wind, tide, and currents, you were picked up by a ship and taken to the United States of America. All of your memories, the island, the cult, Ayata, are tangled up together like a confused vortex in your mind. They are all strange, distant images, but nevertheless you are finding it increasingly difficult to distinguish them from your present reality. A polite rap on the door tells you that food has been prepared for dinner. You open your eyes. You have been in this hotel for the past 2 days. When the captain made it known that the sunburnt drifter was in fact a scholar from London, the University of New York offered to help you out until you could return to England so they could give you a bed, food, and a small sum of money sufficient for essentials. Considering whether or not to accept the invitation to dinner, you see a note being slipped under the door. Intended to note for you. Collect. I feel like this is going to be another note from from the guy who knows a lot of things. And we don't know how he knows a lot of things, but he knows a lot of things. You jump out of the bed and have only taken a step or two towards the door when a rush of blood to your head makes you see stars. The walls of the room are spinning to infinity. All around you, you see faces and eyes in dark fractal arrangements. They are everywhere, on the walls, on the floor, and even on your skin. The head rush subsides. The walls of the room appear to have returned to normal levels of solidity. You rub your temples, take a few deep breaths, and finally go over to pick up the note. That's Lovecraft Stories in a nutshell. 8 chapters of build-up and suspense, then 1/2 chapter ending the story on a cliffhanger. I don't know. I kind of like that Lovecraft stories don't have, like, resolutions. They just have a thing happen. And it makes you feel the way. Still at the threshold of the door, you open the envelope and begin reading. Dear Dr. Huntington, my name is John Baptiste Martin, biologist and surgeon. I have heard about you from various and fragmentary reports here at the university. I'm as curious as everyone to hear about the story of your shipwreck and salvation, but perhaps even more so about the rumor that you are a doctor. I think I heard while questioning one of the men of the ship which brings you here to New York the name of Martinus William Bjornick, and would love to invite you to my home laboratory so that we might discuss various matters which will no doubt be to our mutual interests. Yours sincerely, Jean-Baptiste Martin. Also in the envelope is a business card with an address on the back. In beautiful calligraphy is the time at which you are expected tomorrow. The invitation has astonished you. Over the past few days in New York, you have been feeling like a sort of performing monkey. At dinner, for example, you have felt equivocous glances from all sides. For once, not threatening, but impertinent nonetheless. This, however, is the first interest you have received from a colleague. On the other hand, you consider it perfectly normal that your sudden and mysterious recovery from the sea should create such curiosities, but on the other, you cannot help be suspicious of the latter. We're just gonna accept his invitation. Whether it's perilous to us or not, we will just accept that invitation. It seems pointless sitting about worrying about the invitation. The best way to find Martin's intentions is to meet him face to face. You ask the hotel receptionist to deliver your reply to Martin, then return to your room. You are aware that your university benefactors are expecting you to reestablish yourself, and it is not hard to suppose that this meeting with Martin could be the first of many. You know you should be considering your moves very carefully. I call it Cthulhu, the color out of space and the shadow over his mouth. Personally, I find him a bit overrated. I feel like the reason why Lovecraft is so well regarded is the word that I will use. He's very well regarded. Because he was really the first that we know of to bring this type of horror to the masses, right? And when you're the first, and you know, when you're the first pioneer and it catches on, people remember that. By people that never read the books. That is also fair. Lovecraft and Lovecraft and his monstrous images have really stayed within culture. And so a lot of times people just know that Lovecraft did the whole Cthulhu thing, and they know Cthulhu and, like, some of the other horror-like things. I'm not saying that they're all, like, made by Lovecraft, but anything that's been inspired by Cthulhu or any of the other beings that Lovecraft has made, are taken into regard as like going back to Lovecraft. I hope that made any fucking sense. Only a few hours, you hear back from Martine. A carriage will be sent to pick you up at the hotel at lunchtime tomorrow. A pleasant chat with colleagues. Wonderful. We haven't had that in a long time. The sun set several hours ago. You are sitting silently at the desk in your hotel room. You glance over at the bed as if it were a ferocious animal crouching ready to attack. Sleeping and dreaming have not exactly been enjoyable recently. Nonetheless, you also know that you cannot very well go to tomorrow's meeting with Martine in this frayed state, and you should try to get at least a few hours of rest. Having resolved as much, you are going over to your bed when you hear a noise coming from the direction of the door. You even detect a faint rustle. I'm gonna be cautious about this. You creep close to the door, tiptoeing and keeping your eyes strained to pick up further noises, yet you hear nothing. Even when you press your ear right up against the wood, you do, however, notice another message at your feet. You bend to pick it up. Dear Jake. This is going to be the mysterious man. I'm sure you are now just beginning to feel safe, far from the insanity which has been surrounding you these past few years. However, a good friend must also point out complacency where he sees it. Be very careful, Jake. The cult is active, very active indeed. You should know by now just how far it extends and how it maintains a presence in the most unexpected places. Martin is just another line of silk in the web being spun around you. Do not let yourself become the fly. Great. I can't wait to be paranoid again. Also, I would say the whole cosmic horror is just recycled religious texts with more prejudice and racism. You know? I have heard that complaint from people too, about, like, the works by Lovecraft. I would be interested to... Isn't Cthulhu just the Leviathan from the Bible? I think Cthulhu is the idea of a Leviathan. I don't think that he is the Leviathan. I don't think that he's like a fictitious conjuring of a biblical Leviathan. I think that he probably has inspirations from it, but I don't think he's the same thing. You sit considering all these things this new message conveys. Your paranoia and suspicions have been confirmed as warranted. Yet again, you were right to distrust Martine's invitation. That is, if your mysterious informant can actually be trusted. What if it is, in fact, he that has nefarious intentions? We're going to be cautious about this. You are perplexed by Martine's interest in you. It doesn't have the ring of simple academic curiosity. You have decided tomorrow you will send him another message apologizing and decline his invitation to lunch. To make up for it, you will propose meeting in the afternoon at the hotel bar. This way you will be able to observe him in a public place and he won't be able to pull any nasty surprises if there is any bias to your suspicions or the informant's warning. We have so much experience. You escape the attack of the cult with Ayata and Fugo. The other members of their village have probably all been killed. A pirogue is your last chance to escape, but it can only carry 2 of you. Fugo has given yet another proof of great courage and selflessness, leaving in secret and allowing you to save yourselves. You have been contacted by a certain John Baptiste Martin, who has sent an invitation to your hotel. He presented himself as a colleague. Yes, New York. New York is a little tiny. Somewhat small here. It looks small. Maybe it's really big. Maybe this is like huge. But it looks tiny here. Shit save no difference. A giant beast in the ocean capable of fighting out, same shit, no difference. I don't know if I would agree with that. But I would be very interested to see, like, people's written arguments about them being the same or different. You spend the morning between the hotel restaurant and the bar. Martin's reply is prompt. He is sorry about your setback and says he will be pleased to join you for afternoon tea. You had expected some sort of excuse on his part. Perhaps your suspicions and the informant's message had exaggerated. You are, however, finally decidedly more relaxed about this encounter, and you are even becoming somewhat curious about Martin. You were in the smoke lounge when a waitress announces his arrival. At the hotel's front desk, you meet John Baptiste Martin, and the Frenchman shakes your hand warmly. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, you head to the bar. The Typhon. That sounds really familiar. Give me a second. No, I see what you mean, though. I definitely see what you mean. Having read the description of Typhon. Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from, though. I know full well that for you Englishmen it is time for afternoon tea, but I should rather have something a little stronger if that is if you don't object. It has been many weeks since you have felt the joys of ease and pleasurable conversation. You cannot help but like this little, heavily accented man, and you begin to relax to a degree which you had thought was impossible for you now. You lose track of time completely until Martine points out to you that it is getting dark. We have lost ourselves in chit-chat, mi amor. Mon ami? Not mi amor. I think mi amor means something else. At this point, however, it would make more sense to organize yourselves for dinner rather than lunch, and I can easily make the necessary arrangements with my housekeepers, perhaps. Thank you, but I am not yet entirely, convalesced, and I am also rather tired. Come, Professor Huntington, you need not make excuses. The invitation is made to you with the very best of intentions. Martine immediately understood your intentions and straightaway brushes off your hesitation. But his tone carries not the slightest hint of accusation or reproach. In fact, he is smiling as he speaks. You realize that there are no other logical objections that you can make, and so you might as well accept his invitation. The carriage trip is rather short, or at least it seems that way, because you are fascinated by Martine's many anecdotes about the various scholars he has met. You find yourself smiling often and even laughing. You have not laughed for a time. Jean-Baptiste Martin is a gentle-looking man, cordial and friendly. He has a heavy French accent and has a weakness for good spirits. You let your colleague convince you of his good intentions. Yay! Martin treats you as an honored guest. After making preparations for dinner with your servants, he takes you to his office. Once there, you see that it accesses the small laboratory that he has installed in his home. I bet that you too have come across certain lines of inquiry which can become almost an obsession. Is it not? Sure. I knew it. I had discovered a kindred spirit. Come then, mon ami. Let me show you my observations. Martine takes your arm and guides you towards a door. Please, make yourselves at home, Dr. Huntington. You enter the dimly lit laboratory. Then, as you are crossing the threshold, you suddenly have this strange but definite sensation that despite the darkness and silence inside, there are other people in there. You hear the door closing behind you, and someone pulls the curtains, leaving only a small blade of light. 3 figures emerge from the shadows and advance towards you. Mondu, who are you? You were prepared for this, and so you are already defending yourself and ready to retreat. The first of the 3 men is upon you, but his punches are slow and you dodge them easily. Martine lets out an effeminate shriek. I'm sorry, that got to me. That really got to me. And runs terrified in the farthest corners of his laboratory. We shall go all the way in medicine. It is very difficult to distinguish objects in the darkness of the laboratory, but you manage to find a special-looking bottle containing a transparent liquid. It appears to be carefully and securely sealed shut. It must be an acid of some kind. You snatch the bottle and throw it at one of your attackers. The sound of breaking glass is straight away, followed by screams and a faint sizzling. His screams and manic, convulsive gestures distract the other 2 opponents, giving you time to strike and knock them out. The only sound in the laboratory is now coming from Martine. You find him crouched under a counter with his arms over his head, murmuring a prayer in French. Your heart is racing, and you realize that more men could arrive at any moment. You must quickly find a way to get out of this static yet perilous situation. Just leave. You don't need to be a cunt. You get to the door and pull the handle, but as you expected, it is locked. Mustering all your remaining strength and sense of urgency, you hurl yourself against the door. It hinges, buckles with the force. It is not yield. The men are still stunned to the ground, and so you make a second equally fruitless the door. We're just gonna destroy the laboratory. You are accurately aware that more men can arrive at any moment, or the men you have already dealt with will recover enough to launch a new attack. Martine's servants are also at home, and you have no way of knowing whether they too are involved. Martine is still crouched in the corner. He does not even appear to know what is going on. You start overturning the tables. Fire would be useful in drawing the attention of the authorities, specifically the New York Fire Brigade, which would hinder your opponents considerably. We're gonna commit arson. In the dim light, you start rummaging through loudspeakers and other containers. Using your nose, you try to identify their contents. Frisking the shelves with your fingers, you come across a piece of paper with something scrawled on it. You obviously cannot read it in the darkness, so you pocket it and resume your search. Finally, you recognize sulfuric acid. You spill it all over the table and light it with matches that you find next to the Bunsen burner. The flame leaps up ferociously. You find a window and get ready to smash it to escape. You go over to where Martine is hiding and grab his arm, ready to pull him away. Wasn't there to fight. Okay. I see what you're saying there. No, don't hurt me. This man is just pissing himself right now. Finally, Martina raises his face and sees that it is you. Pointing at the fire, you shout at him to follow you, but then drag him behind you anyway. Martina is terrified and extremely awkward in his movements. You seize him and force him through the window as the flames and the heat behind you grow into a crescendo. You take a few rapid steps away from the house, pulling Martin along behind you. He is in a bad state, and you have to stop to help him. Turning back to the laboratory, you see that the flames are starting to rise up out of the window. Martina is staring at them as if in a trance. In the distance, you hear the sirens of the New York Fire Brigade. You jettison the professor. You have to get away from here. You leave behind the English-style lawns surrounding Martin's house and start running along the road. Eventually, you let go of Martin's arms so that you can go a little further ahead to assess the situation. Behind you, you hear Martin stop to catch his breath. Martin is a mess. He is certainly no athlete. Suddenly you hear a noise coming from the far end of the street. There is no way of knowing whether it's the fire department or more cultists, so you flatten yourself against the wall to avoid being seen. Martino, watching you, does likewise. The noise dies down and Owen enters the street. You let out a sigh of relief when you are preparing to continue your escape when you hear a sound behind you recognize immediately. The click of a revolver being cocked. You turn slowly around. Martin is holding a revolver aimed at your face. Suddenly his labor breathing has vanished, along with his French accent. We're so fucked. Dr. Huntington, please follow me immediately, and no one will come to harm. You attack him from the crouch position. The time it takes Martin to aim the gun at you is enough, and you hit his arm with all your strength. Your aim is good, and you hit a nerve in his arm, which, as well as giving him an intense shooting pain, makes him drop the weapon. You capitalize on his weakness with several more hard blows to his face. You bend down and start rummaging through the pockets of the unconscious cultist. You find something interesting inside his jacket pocket, a notebook. It is a black notebook with a hardcover and a raffia band keeping it closed. Flicking through the white-lined pages, you come across various notion sketches. On the first page, you recognize the eye symbol of the cult. You put it in your pocket. You once again find yourself in great danger. There is not much in the way of choice. You must leave New York at once. Find a clue in Martin's lab. You resist the temptations to set one or more fires. Lighthouse drawing. Running your hands on one of the tables, you find a sheet of paper with a sketch drawn nervously. You don't have time to examine it, so you put it in your pocket in order to look at it later. A black notebook with a hardcover and a raffia band. The white striped pages contain some notes and drawings. On the first page, you recognize the cult member's eye symbol. You found 3 cultist men waiting for you in Martine's laboratory. How did they know you'd be there? Is the cult still spying on you? Martine turned out to be a liar. He is a member of the cult. Everything about him was fake, even his French accent. You managed to retrieve his notebook. It contained useful information. You walk out of the residential area and towards the train station. Going back to the hotel makes no sense since there is nothing there that you really need. You will take the first train that comes. Traveling to the unknown. So I think I'm going to save here. And that'll be it, because that's been a lot of reading. It's been a lot of things that happened. It just keeps going. It's never going to end. I think I found a never-ending game. Okay. It's also getting really hot in this room. So I would like to leave. Just like Minecraft. Minecraft, theoretically, never ends. You could just keep fucking going. Yeah. But let's see who we can raid. So we've got Subnautica, we've got Rain World, we've got Vintage Story, we've got Bree doing her subathon. So what do you guys feel like seeing? So since I'm not here, you have no idea, okay. So since I'm not hearing any suggestions, we're gonna go visit Bori! I'm trying to remember. We'll just do a normal raid message. But thank you guys so much for coming to stream, and I will see you all next time. Bye!
3 hours to download it.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Oh, give me